Hey, what's up, everybody? It has been 25 years since Halloween H2O graced the big screens, and today I want to talk about if the Halloween franchise should have stopped with that movie. So, what does Halloween H2O being 25 years old tell us? Besides the fact that we're all of a sudden kind of old now as Halloween fans, unless you're one of the younger Halloween fans, more power to you. But what does it tell us? Well, it tells us there's been, 6 Halloween sequels since, and this franchise is not going to die anytime soon, right? I mean, they cut Michael's head off in this movie, and it didn't die. I am not going to get into, a retrospective of this movie. I'm just going to talk about if the franchise should have ended. I'm going to pull up an article here in a moment. If you want more Halloween H2O content and you want to get into the nitty-gritty details of this movie, I would encourage you to check out my friend, the Shape of Horror podcast, Bud. He is doing a live stream tomorrow night, Monday, August 14th, as we're filming this. He is doing a live stream on H2O, and he's got all kinds of different things planned, and he's really going to break down the movie and get into the nitty-gritty. I'll put a link in the description up here, and or a link up there, and I'll put a link to his channel in the description. So I'd encourage you guys to check that out. I know he has some big stuff planned. But should the franchise have ended? Probably. Okay? And I am no H2O fan. We're going to get into an article here in a minute and read a little bit of it. But was that the perfect send-off for the franchise? Now, you could make an argument that Halloween 2 was a perfect send-off for the franchise, or even the original Halloween. You can make the same argument for like Friday the 13th, the final chapter, for, Dream Warriors from A Nightmare on Elm Street. A lot of our favorite sequels probably should have been the end. H2O, like I said, is far from my favorite sequel. There are many reasons for that, whether it's the lighting, the portrayal of Myers, the way everything's kind of screamified, on and on and on. But it got one thing right. Laurie Strode, which is more than I can say for the David Gordon Green trilogy, and it got the ending of How You Take Down Myers. Okay, so let's get into this article real quick. Before I do that, tell me in the comments, guys, if you think the franchise should have ended after H2O. It's kind of a hit or miss, right? You might think that the franchise should have ended at H2O, but there's been a lot of good stuff since H2O as well, right? There are good parts of the David Gordon Green trilogy. A lot of good parts, actually. You could be a Rob Zombie's fan, Rob Zombie's Halloween fan. All that stuff happened after H2O. So it's kind of a bittersweet question to ask, but I'm talking about more from a thematic standpoint here. But let's get into the article. Let's pull this up here. All right, this is from digitaltrends.com. It is the Halloween franchise should have ended 25 years ago with Halloween H2O, 20 years later. God, what a dumb title. All right, anyway. Michael Myers is dead. If you believe that, we've got a boarded up house in Haddonfield to sell you. Granted, Michael did look pretty dead at the end of the last year's Halloween Ends. David Gordon Green, in the closing chapter of his geriatric killer trilogy, went to extreme lengths to convince the audience that there's no possible way Myers, aka the Shape, aka the Boogeyman, could have survived what Laurie Strode did to his senior citizen body. That's quite the sentence there, isn't it? The closing shot of Michael's mask, harmlessly unworn under the beam of comforting sunlight, was about as symbolically final as these movies get. Yeah, for the most part, I agree with all that. If Green went overboard proving that Myers is really gone this time, and if fans might still be reluctant to believe him, it's because the Halloween series has cheated death before. It sure fucking has. And not just in that familiar, we don't see the monster die so he could still be alive slasher sequel kind of way. It was 25 years ago this month. Why are they releasing Halloween films in August? God, that drives me nuts. Anyway, 25 years ago this month that the ballad of Laurie and Michael reached its logical coda with the climactic swing of an axe in the closing seconds of the clumsily titled Halloween H2O 20 years later. Michael Myers died, like truly decisively kicked the bucket in that movie. but it didn't stop Hollywood from finding a cheap way to bring him back and spoil the perfect ending. Yeah, so it really was a damn good ending to the Halloween franchise. I'm not talking about the movie, I am talking about the ending of this movie. I agree with that the franchise should have died there. But like I said, it's bittersweet. We got a lot of good things after that. We got a lot of bad things after that. I remember seeing this in theaters as a kid. And I remember being really young before this movie came out. And I would always say, why don't they just cut his head off? Why don't they just cut his head off? Because at that time, slashers, still at this time, I guess, but slasher villains never died. Nobody ever cut his head off. Well, they cut his head off. I remember being in the theater with my jaw dropped. I was a teenager, young teenager. I remember my jaw was just dropped. Like, holy shit, they really did it. And then 4 years later, we get another movie. Jesus, and it's not a retcon. It's just a sequel to that movie with Myers. Flabbergasted. But yeah, I do agree with what this article is saying, that the franchise should have died. It would have been a much more fitting send-off to especially Laurie Strode's character and the way she dealt with trauma in that movie. I thought it was more believable than what she was dealing with, or how she was dealing with it in the David Gordon Green trilogy. And in this canon, at least Halloween 2 is still there. But there is no doubt that this franchise is a mess. There's also no doubt that this franchise will continue in some form or another, whether that is a TV show, as I speculated, another sequel, a reboot, whatever. This franchise is not going to die anytime soon. But the question I ask, and the question this article has asked, or I guess the thing this article was talking about is, should the franchise have died after Halloween H2O? I say yes. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.